up, you guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, just welcome. My name is Gemma Jade, but today we are going to be discussing creatures that feed on us. Now, we've discussed creatures that feed on us across multiple videos, but I wanted to get one video to kind of speak on and discuss specifically the feeding from multiple different entities, if that makes sense. I come across a lot of strange and bizarre information, and normally I'm all too pleased to use it as material here on my channel, or even just when speaking to you all in live streams. A lot of it is anecdotal, and I use it to start conversations in the streams when I feel there's a lull. This is, however, not one of those topics. Though I'm sure you will find it quite interesting, it is a bit terrifying to most people to just randomly insert it into a conversation. The fact that it is 1,000,000% true is also most people will have a hard time wrapping their heads around. I, as usual, couldn't resist and am here now to inform you all of what is happening all around us and to call your attention to it all, as I know most of us, even in this community, aren't even aware of it. That's what makes it so much scarier to me. The fact that with all of the abilities floating around throughout this community and just here on my channel in general, most human beings are not aware that this is happening. I reiterate. Okay, so in truth, a lot of us may have a clue, but do we really know the extent as to which we are another, or several others for that matter, creatures' food? I mean, no wonder there is such rampant sickness, lethargy, depression, addiction, etc. This is by no means or in any way, shape, or form, and I hate that I even have to say this, but I know that I already need to, saying that mental illness doesn't exist and that it's always the case that some creature is feeding off of that person's energy and spirit. But I will say this, I am fairly certain and in fact mostly sure that this is the cause of all of human suffering in those specific ways all of the time. Like, it does make a huge difference and it does affect us in those ways constantly. Whatever it causes, as each person subjected to this type of vampiric feeding is different, it's never a good thing. And I truly hope that by bringing this to you all now, it'll help you not only understand that it's really happening, but how it happens, and also maybe how to at least stand a fighting chance at preventing it. So let's have a look. We should all know by now that this world is not everything it appears to be. Not much is really as it seems, and in fact, there are a ton of people out there who truly believe we are living in an actual simulation, and therefore, nothing's real. I'm somewhere in the middle with that theory. Like, I'm not sure where I stand with it. I really believe it, but then I'm like, I don't know. So I'll be bringing Glitch in the Matrix stories to you all really soon, and also the simulation theory broken down, Gemma style, of course. We all wake in the morning and go about our daily lives, and no matter what that may look like for you, there is one constant, whether you're aware of it or not, is the fact that in the darkness of the places we cannot see, and I don't mean that there's no light and it's dark, although I'm sure it's happening then too, but in the broad daylight and all over the world, there is something terribly dark and sinister that most people, even sensitives and even those with certain abilities, have no clue about. Zero. Sure, as I said in my introduction, some people can actually feel and sense that something's happening and that it's negative, but only some of us can actually see it. There's more and more people every single day waking up and realizing they have certain abilities in them, and this would be a great segue into my upcoming video about abilities and activation and all that, but let me slow my roll a bit. Slow it down, girl. So, with more and more people waking up and recognizing and possibly even learning how to use their own abilities for the greater good of the collective, there is still a very large fraction of humanity that has no idea that we, human beings, are literally food. Literally food. No idea about the things that come in and out of our dimension that most of us can't even see, and some of us can't even sense, who energetically take from us. This has been going on since the dawn of time, and we are just now, as a collective, beginning to even have an inkling of it. It's that powerful. While there is so much that goes on all day long every day, as I stated earlier in this video specifically, I want to focus mainly on the things that happen while we are asleep, and usually in what's known as the nightmare state. Also, like I was saying before, it happens sometimes that someone, maybe like me, who has a tiny bit of reach and can get the information out there to the masses, comes across something that we can really make a difference in the lives of so many if only those people were to listen and also spread the word. The people reached being you guys. That's based though on how much of this, if any, you guys are willing to believe. However, I will say this. If you believe in me and trust that I would never purposely mislead you or tell you a lie, then please believe what I tell you in this video if you ever believed anything I brought to you since I've been on this platform. It's that freaking serious. I keep repeating myself a little bit, but that's because this is massive. It's mind-blowingly massive. And it affects us detrimentally as a collective and as individuals. It's not a joke, and it's not going away either. In fact, it all seems to be getting worse and happening so much more nowadays than ever before. Maybe by the end of this, we'll have some kind of answer to, or at least a reasoning for that. It used to be that almost exclusively people with abilities were subjects to these types of things, but definitely not anymore. There is an absolutely ghastly number of paranormal and otherworldly entities, energies, and creatures that torture us physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and even psychically, and also that absolutely terrify us, and they've been doing it for millennia. They are parasitic in nature, and it is definitely not a symbiotic relationship I'm talking about here. These things are monstrous, and they're leeches who not only feed on us, but suck us almost dry in all the same ways I just mentioned, for lack of wanting to once again repeat myself. They don't only fuel themselves with all these different types of energy. No. It goes much deeper than that, and in fact, much deeper than I can possibly even get into here, but I will be talking about it just a little bit in my next book about shadow entities and sleep paralysis. These creatures feed on our sexual energy and often very high states of emotion, and our freaking life force in general. Our life force, our essence. They roam around, most of them in the form of energy, and just lurk and wait for the right moment. Usually it's when we're at our lowest, but sometimes when we're at our highest too. Think sexual here, and then they pounce on us. They drain us, quite literally, of any type of intense emotion, whether it's higher or lower vibrational, though more often than not, it's the latter. This is definitely not a good situation here, guys. And these things, both individually and separately, hate and despise us. Yep, they need us in order to survive. And this is basically, in my humble opinion at least, though I'm sure I'm not alone here, the reason why they just don't kill us off and take the planet for themselves. I'm positive they wish to do just that, but can't, because without us, they'd starve to death. What a predicament. There is extensive data which proves that our soul, or the human life force, however you want to put it and whatever name you want to give it, doesn't really matter, as it's all the same thing, is something that every single one of these entities who lurk around, as I said, in a state of pure energy, though undoubtedly can and sometimes do, take on any shape and or form that they want to in any given moment, need to survive. Our soul, our essence, our energy, our very being. Have you ever had one of those nightmares that was so incredibly intense you wake up not only scared out of your damn mind, but also in a state of panic and with some sort of deep sense that perhaps it wasn't a nightmare at all and that it actually happened? Even when it's something you wake up to where you feel like this and you can't even remember it, but you just know. That's because most of the time, in this scenario at least, it did happen, just it happened when you were sleeping and at your most vulnerable. You're drained, you're exhausted, and you feel as though you haven't slept in days despite having just woken up, even if from a solid 8 hours. Your entire day is off because you're unusually lethargic and perhaps you don't even feel emotionally like doing anything that you have to do that day. Does this all sound way too familiar? I know it does. Are you finding this happening more and more lately, in more recent years? I'll have my contact info at the end if you're interested in more than what I'm covering here, or if you have any additional questions. I'll try and respond to everyone to the best of my ability, as I always do. Okay, back to setting the scene. You're up and panicked, terrified and confused, and know somewhere deep down that what just happened in your worst nightmare really happened. Somehow. So you chalk it up to your being paranoid or foolish. Then please understand that this is exactly what those things bet on. They think we are stupid and simply food for them and nothing else, and they can almost guarantee that most of us won't even give it a second thought once we are out of bed and on with our day. Most of us will be over it by the time we are consuming our morning coffee and or green tea blends. I know it sounds so weird, but even dreams aren't always dreams. With the dark must come the light, and with the good must come the bad, right? I mean, why is it so easy for us to believe a dream, perhaps about a deceased loved one coming in to give us a message, could have been a real message and a real visitation, but we draw a firm line at believing the same for nightmares? Okay, yeah, I know, I'm getting off track. There's something else you could basically set your watch by, right? Anyways, this of course is a perfect lead-in for talking about my most favorite phenomenon, the shadow people. If you've been following me for a while and actually watch my videos, then you should know at least a little bit about these incessantly annoying and very much creepy entities, which usually manifest between the hours of midnight and about 4 a.m., essentially when it's dark outside. Yes, you can see them during the day as well, and a lot of people, again, especially in recent years, do see them during the day and night and even outside, but for the most part, and talking simply throughout history, the darkest hours for us is their most chosen time to appear and do their damage, or, depending on the type, do whatever it is they do. These things, at least the hostile ones, which I'll call the sleep paralysis demons, and who are actually the main focus of my next book, literally paralyze us and vampirically feed off of our energy and essence, our fear and our life force, just as vampires in the Anne Rice novels hold people down and feed off their bloods. There has been cases where the elusive and mythical vampire of ancient legends and lore has themselves what they call donors. Donors are humans who are said to voluntarily give their blood to the vampires so they can feed, and it's almost unheard of for the creature to drain the donor. What good would that do? That's exactly what I like in the shadow people and the so-called sleep paralysis they put us into, too. Who knows? And some would say it's a fact, while I am mainly just considering it. It makes sense that perhaps the blood-sucking vampires we know and have grown to love thanks to modern-day fiction got their start in this world thanks to the nameless and hardly seen and therefore unknown shadows that feed off of our energy in the night. Does that make sense? Like someone knew what was going on and just decided to put a face to it and change a couple of little things. If you want to know exactly what the shadow people or the shadow entities are, you're out of luck. The topic of simply what they are is subject to a lot of drama and a lot of debate. Everyone has their opinions as to what these multidimensional beings are and what they want, where they come from, and how long they've been here. I mean, every single thing about them is technically unknown. Even those of us who may think we know really can't back it up with facts and evidence. There is data though, but even that varies depending on who you speak to and who collected it. There are a few people I would consider to be an expert on the subject though, as I am hoping to one day myself be considered. Thank you very much. And one of those people is named Jason Offutt. In 2009, he authored a book called Darkness Walks, The Shadow People Among Us. He says in his book, and I agree, and I'm speaking on something similar, though not exactly in my book, that there are at least 8 different types of shadow entities that we know of. I love his labels for them too. They are as follows: the benign shadows, the shadows of terror, the red-eye shadows, noisy shadows, angry hooded shadows, shadow cats, the Hat Man, and shadows that attack. The Hat Man is definitely one that at least most of us have heard of, right? It's actually fast becoming the most commonly reported type of shadow entity cited in the last 20 years or so. Reports of the Hat Man are indiscriminate in where they come from. To humor me for a moment while I speak to those of you who have never encountered this terrifying, sometimes red-eyed monstrosity, imagine, if you will, a humanoid bipedal silhouette of a man, which looks almost comically as though it walked right out of an earlier decade and forgot to change its shadow clothes. The era of the 40s and 50s seemed to be its heyday, so keep that in mind and, well, there you go. It's the Hat Man. The comic relief doesn't last long, though, as the terror and fear strike you to your very bones almost instantly upon laying your eyes on this infernal being. The fact that the entity is all black yet dense, a complete and total shadow, lends to not only its mystery, but to the terror and dread it strikes in the hearts of those who witness it. Another expert who I've spoken about before in my videos about the shadow entity phenomenon is a brilliant woman named Heidi Hollis. She wrote a book in 2014 based almost solely on this particular form of shadow entity, and it's titled The Hat Man: The True Story of Evil Encounters. She's collected more witness statements and encounters with this creature than I have, and that's really saying something here. Let's talk very briefly about one of the encounters in her book. It should be enough to give you at least the gist of the situation. Quote, "Dear Heidi, I was maybe 5 years old when the Hat Man started to visit me. Every night I would lay in the top bed of my bunk bed and watch as my door would crack open for him to creep inside. As high up as I would still have to look up to see him, and I would freeze in horror at the sight of him." End quote. Yeah, that pretty much sums it up. As anyone who has ever had the extreme displeasure of having an encounter with this entity will tell you, it is quite unpleasant, to say the least. Even more, or at the very least equally as dangerous, are the entities that thrive on our sexual energy. Not really talking about shadow entities here though. This is something similar while still being altogether different, and I mean that similar in that it feeds on us, Just it goes about it a lot differently, and the energy it gets the most satisfaction from is our orgone energy, our sexual energy, to put it simply. It's said that one of, if not the first person to figure this out and posit a theory about these entities specifically is a man named Wilhelm Reich. Those super powered sex dreams we all sometimes have that seemingly come out of nowhere. I mean, we're all adults here, guys. Let's try to just keep it together, but also be honest with ourselves, okay? It happens. Yeah, those beings most likely and more often than not are the ones who actually initiate those dreams, so we can go through all of that while asleep and they can eat up every last iota of energy from it. It must be pleasurable, right? I mean, how can it not be? I mean, just a question I'm asking myself while going through all of this. It has to be. This supernatural seducer, to call it exactly what it is, despite, again, how silly it seems, have been reported throughout the centuries since the beginning of time and have been called by many names. Lilith, succubus, incubus, and the old hag. If you know of another one, leave it in the comments below, please. Ever wonder why, or did you even know, that there are more than what would be considered a normal amount of supernatural happenings and paranormal sightings in the areas deemed to be lovers' lanes? Bet you didn't know that. It's wild, guys, and it's the truth. I looked it up. Voyeurism too is huge at these spots for obvious reasons, and also murders. I mean, this could be a whole topic in and of itself, but why do the killers find themselves drawn to these locations specifically? Could they be overtaken by one of these voyeuristic entities or wholly possessed by one in the heat of the moment? Interesting thing I want to look up, and I'll get back to you. Can these entities feed easier, or does it make a difference if they fully possess a human? Then when the person commits the murder, it gives off a whole new range of supercharged and superpowered emotions for it and other entities to feed off of. Anyways, sexual emotion and the aforementioned voyeurism lead directly to the feeding of these entities. Since they're always around us in energetic form most of us cannot see, it makes perfect sense. Let's talk briefly about poltergeists too while we're at it. While these noisy ghosts can oftentimes just be leftover and expelled energy from a hormonal and overactive teenager, usually, but not always, the female, who has no idea about or is just coming to terms with her own abilities, those aren't the ones I will be discussing with you here today. I am speaking of the mostly violent and aggressive entities who do torturous things to us, and it seems the more we react negatively, the more aggressive and hostile they get. Also, the more dangerous things get as well, and let's face it, I don't know of anyone who's going to sit there and smile and be filled with peace, joy, and love when they're having knives tossed at them while randomly standing in the kitchen doing dishes, or has a lamp thrown at their head when they come downstairs for a drink in the middle of the night. The more they torture us, and believe me, they absolutely love to do just that, the more energized they become, also due to us and our high emotions and reactions to their destruction and terror. Another part of this whole equation, tulpas. Yeah, tulpas. Tulpas are literally formed by our own thoughts and are an entity we create. First with and only in our minds, and then they become fully formed entities all of their own with a taste for our terror and our lower vibrational energy. They start out in our imagination, sometimes even without our knowledge, which is even more terrifying if you really think about it, and they are eventually brought to life right before our very eyes, and seemingly all of a sudden. The key to their survival, though, is our belief in them. Again, it's hard not to believe in something you are witnessing with your own eyes and hearing with your own ears, right? So how do we not feed them? How do we protect ourselves from any of these entities and energies that are feeding off of us? I have some ideas, but I'll save them for later or another time depending on how deep we get here. I am going to bring up something now that many of you will most likely scoff at as some made-up creepypasta, and that's okay. State your opinions freely and openly in the comments while remembering to respect others, myself, and yourself as well. So, a huge example of a very real tulpa, one who came to its actual and physical creation thanks to the imaginations and thought processes of us, the collective, as a whole. Humanity, or human beings, I guess, not all of humanity, but human beings as a whole brought this thing to life. It's seen all around the world and reported more often than any other known tulpa in existence right now. That's right, you guessed it, it's the Slender Man. This skinny, scrawny, faceless monstrosity is oftentimes seen in the middle of the night and always wearing a suit. He isn't only out in the woods waiting to steal unattended little children anymore, though. He is almost always seen hovering over our beds at night and simply staring at us, as much as a creature without eyes or a face can stare, at least. Let's be real, the shadow entities are very similar in that they have no eyes or nose or facial features either. Slender Man could be some sort of strange shadow being himself for all we know. Bet your behinds, though, while standing there like a creep and seeming to watch you sleep, he is also manipulating your dreams and nightmares and feeding off of your energy. He is more than likely creating some very, very personal and extremely horrific experiences for you in your nightmares. In my opinion, it's a man named Eric Knudsen who we officially have to thank for this internet masterpiece. In 2009, Eric uploaded a few doctored up photos of what we now know to be the Slenderman entity, and I'm pretty sure, but not positive because I don't do creepypastas. I have enough to deal with real life entities that I'm seeing and hearing all the time. The backstory as well, which is almost as chilling as a suited child napper himself. He put them on a website called Something Awful, and under the pseudonym Victor Surge, a legend was born. It didn't take long, though, for other people to start sending in their own alleged experience and encounters with the Slenderman entity, despite knowing it was simply a creation from someone's genius imagination, or at least mostly. When I first heard about the Slenderman, it was through that poor little girl whose friends tried. Thankfully, they didn't succeed to sacrifice her to him so they could go and live with him in some forest somewhere down south, I think. And I had no idea it was a creepypasta, or even what that was for that matter, and went down the rabbit hole for days thinking the Slender Man was a real entity. Doesn't that mean, though, that essentially he was very real for me at that time? Anyways, the Slender Man got so much attention and stories about him were posted practically everywhere. It started to not just be internet fun and simply stories anymore, though. It turned into actual true encounters. People all over the world were actually encountering this entity for real, in real life. There were so many people sending in encounters, in fact, that I have a very hard time believing that every single one of those thousands or more were making it up. Also, what do people have to gain from that? Okay. Maybe it's now considered cool to see shadow people or be a medium, but most of us can agree, I'm sure, when it's happening to you, there's nothing cool about it. And when you're publicly stating your encounter on the internet for all to see, then it becomes real. And not only does that create a real life tulpa, a collective freaking tulpa, if you will, but it also puts you at risk for people seeing it and really understanding you believe at least that you saw what you say you saw. And then what? The Slender Man was now a fully formed and real life entity thanks, as I said, to the collective consciousness, and guess what else? He was hungry. Okay, we aren't even done yet, as I haven't even brought in my number 3 most fascinating entity yet, the MIB. If you look at encounters or stories from people who had visitations from these ghoulish creepsters, or even just a simple interaction, if we're being honest, you will see why they fit perfectly into this little list I've compiled. Aside from the vague and not so veiled threats and acts of intimidation they've experienced with these pale-faced possible alien beings, but also possibly not alien too, they've also in many cases have reported feeling sick to their stomachs, cold, clammy, dizzy, and nauseous, to simply name a few of the many symptoms these entities seem to invoke in us humans. Many of the witnesses have even stated, long before the knowledge of feeding has ever come to light publicly, that they literally felt like they were being fed off of. Many of the witnesses have even stated, long before the knowledge of feeding has ever come to light publicly, that they literally felt like they were being fed off of, drained of their energy at the very least in some way. It's been likened to the battery in a flashlight being slowly drained until eventually it dims and dims some more, and then it blinks out. I don't know what this was. The problem is we humans get drained and drained and dim and dim. Our actual lights dim and dim and dim too until we blink out. Only we have and experience a physical death. While I definitely personally believe these entities want us dead, I wholeheartedly also believe that they won't purposely kill us because they legitimately need us in order to continue on living themselves. We've recently discussed the possibility right here on this channel that extraterrestrials, or at least certain types, feed on us in the same way that I'm describing here with the supernatural feeders. What about extraterrestrials needing our souls too, though? Think about Bob Lazar for a moment, if you will, specifically what he had to say about the UFOs allegedly being held at a place called S4, and let's not forget to include his many opinions and statements about element 115, which I'm actually not going to include because that would be just like a whole other video. If you want to hear about it, hit me up in the comments. Bob Lazar's story and theories are so incredibly controversial, and depending which side of the fence you're on, either a real revelation or an extraordinary load of BS, that it has made most of society, even in the field of ufology, lose focus and sight of one aspect of his claims in particular that I'd like to call attention to here. Some may say these are disturbing and possibly even revelations into the afterlife, but I won't go that far despite believing in what, the other things that he says wholeheartedly. My reasoning for that is everything I already know is absolute fact regarding what's on the other the so-called other side, but I say that I believe in what he has to say too, and for some that's a complete and total contradiction. I already know that, and most of this information and most of it in these communities we hang around in as a whole are just that, contradictory. It's kind of what we have to live with. So Lazar claims he had access to many papers regarding S4, and one of them truly stuck out. He stated that the extraterrestrials, or aliens, refer to us humans as quote-unquote containers. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. It's so accurate if you're taking in and believing in what I'm presenting to you in this video. It makes perfect sense though, doesn't it? Containers of energy, containers of food. Don't they both mean the same thing? Also, we have no idea what kind of containers they meant. Bob Lazar got a bit controversial and no doubt pissed off a few people when he went and told George Knapp that, quote, religion was created so we have some rules and regulations for the sole purpose of not damaging the containers, end quote. Is this an interesting theory? I guess. The religion thing, I guess. Do I personally believe it? No. While I said I believe in most of what he says, being a physical medium since birth, I know much better about religion than to ever believe that particular statement. I don't think he's lying though. I believe this is exactly what any self-serving entity, including extraterrestrials that feed off of us one way or another, would want us to believe. Of course they'd say that so somebody could hear and write it down and then publicly explode it at some point. Believe that about religion, so you have no faith and nothing real to believe in. No doubt it makes some people angry, others fearful, and others still depressed. All very lower vibrational, lower level energy, which seemingly is the tastiest to them. The alleged biggest and most well-kept secret of all, perhaps anyways, is that the aliens actually have quite an interest in the human soul. Allegedly, too, they are using the human soul, and the United States government, while very much aware that they're doing this, has no idea why or how or for what purpose. Do they know though? And is it so incredibly horrific that they have no idea how to tell us? Why would they want to tell us? Up until recently, as we all know, despite all of the witness testimony, visual and physical evidence, and just data in general throughout the centuries and possible millennia to the contrary, they are still only willing to come forward and admit that UFOs exist. That isn't even technically admitting to the existence of extraterrestrials themselves, but just their crafts. Now, before you guys blow me up in the comments, I do admit I may be a little off regarding that situation, as I never watch TV, the news especially, and when I absolutely must for my research, it's only if I can't find what I'm looking for in books and archives, and only for a very short period of time. Just long enough to get what I need from it. One of the theories is basically the same as with that of the other entities, but with the extraterrestrials themselves, I have too much respect for the ones I've met and feel like the word alien is not only a type of slur, but also completely wrong, since most likely they were here before us, but that's just me. That the ETs are feeding on our souls and our life forces. So let's take a look and unpack this just a smidgen. The Earth is a farm, and we're what? Cattle? Sheep? Either way, upon our deaths, they literally reap our souls and get all the glorious life force and energy, and it sustains them for a while. Then why wouldn't they just kill us and put our souls into other containers that they didn't have to herd, so to speak, right? Because we're cattle or sheep or whatever, considering we are being likened to animals on a farm. Nope, I don't believe in this, not for a second. Not the part about them reaping our souls upon our deaths. I know better. I know for a fact different. Sorry. However, Lazar absolutely stands by this statement and says it's what he read in some briefing somewhere. I'm oversimplifying yet again, I know. And forgive me, this is getting a bit long-winded and I'm trying to wrap it up. So, because of this angle, the one with the reaping of the souls has led not only people who are aware of this in general, but also some researchers in the ufology field to believe that extraterrestrials are nothing more than high-tech demons. Regardless of any of this, and what you believe, the bottom line, though it may not be that the Earth is a farm, is in fact that for many entities, energies, and even some extraterrestrials, we are their food. There's things we can do about it, yeah, but you'll have to wait for another video, or kindly ask and let me know if you'd like to see a video like that. So be like, yeah, we want to know what we can do about being fed off of Gemma. Hit us up. With that being said, that's all I have for you today, guys. Please be sure and give this video a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already, and spread the love by sharing this video. If you haven't already too, please go on over to MoonBearOracle and subscribe over there. It's my second channel. It's still kind of up and coming there, guys, but you've been so patient with me. You've been so amazing. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget, on Mondays now, usually at 11 a.m. Eastern time, sometimes a little bit later. I mean, I'm trying to stay on my game. I want to give a massive, massive thank you to all my friends in this community, all my supporters, everyone who's made donations, everyone who's joined my Patreon, everyone who's ordered my manifestation and intention sprays, everyone who buys personals, who likes the videos, who shares it out, anyone who supports me in any way. Guys, massive thank you. You have no idea, it means the world to me. Speaking of my new business, my manifestation and intention sprays, I am still trying to find someone to help me set up a website or run a website for me where I can list my products. So anyway, I left the short video that I put up about what it is I'm trying to do with these sprays, homemade, handcrafted, moon water, charmed crystals, free gift from me, handwritten thank you note, I'll leave the link to that video in the description box if you guys want to check it out. $18.95 includes shipping, but go and see what it's about. All right. If you'd like to purchase my book, Missing the Fae Theory, on Amazon, I'll leave a link to the Kindle and the paperback version. If you would like a signed copy, please hit me up before you make the purchase. My next book, 101 Terrifying Ghost Stories, I can't even remember the name of it. It is 101 of really scary ghost stories with a foreword by Steve Stockton, and that should be out in the next couple of weeks. I mean, late June, early July at the very latest. If you'd like to make a donation to the channel, I will leave my PayPal, Cash App, and Patreon links in the description box, as well as if you'd like to send me a gift to help the channel, like a deck or some crystals or whatever is on that wish list. I will leave the Amazon wish list gift link in there as well. If you would like a personal intuitive oracle reading from me, 7 to 10 cards, sometimes more, please email me at MoonBearOracle@gmail.com for more information. If you have any encounters with the extraterrestrial, supernatural, paranormal, otherworldly, evil, sinister, whatever it may be, please send them in to me and I will make them part of my Listener Encounter series. I am about to film, as soon as I can, Listener Encounter 16. I'm hoping to do it sometime this week. Thank you guys so much for sending in your encounters. Please continue to do so. Just keep sending them and sending them. Even when I'm not asking, I will pile them up. And then when I'm ready to do the next Listener Encounters, I will let you guys know that your encounter is going to be in the video, and you can send those in by emailing me at GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. Yes, 2 different emails, MoonBearOracle@gmail.com and GemmaJadeParanormal@gmail.com. It doesn't matter which one you send it to, I check them both. There's also a link for Gemma Jade merch on Etsy. There are shirts, there are sneakers, there are wall hangings, there are coffee mugs that actually I think say coffee. Pretty much a little bit of everything. There is a journal, diary, notebook type of thing. I think phone cases. There's so much, and I still have to get in there and create more. So that link will be in the description box as well. Thank you so much for everyone who has made purchases off the Etsy shop. On Tuesday nights, it's live from another dimension with me and Ghost Dragon ZW from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time right here on the Gemma Jade channel. I'm trying to bring back the old fireside chats that me and Steve Stockton used to do. And on Wednesday nights, I'm still doing my live intuitive oracle from 7:15 to 11:15ish p.m. Eastern Time, where I take one card from a random deck and give a weekly reading off of that card intuitively for anyone and everyone who comes in. It's first come, first serve. Try to get your name on the list by 10:45 Eastern to make sure that I get everyone read. If you don't want a reading, you can still come on in and hang out. You don't have to get your reading and go. You can still hang out. It's an amazing, welcoming, inviting, loving community that I'm just so proud of. Guys, I love you so much. Be kind to each other, be kind to yourselves, and never accept anything less than others being kind to you. If you need help with the energy around you, check out that video on the manifestation and intention sprays, all right? Yes, doing big things. Always go in grace, guys. It's so late. I am so tired. Always go in grace, smile at a stranger, and I will see you guys next time. A massive thank you so much for all of the support. Almost hitting 3,000 subs. Yay! Who would have thunk it? A little girl from New Jersey like me. I'm going to stop talking now. Bye, guys.